I'm Ashley,
And I'm Jasmin.
and you're tuned into Ham Radio Stranger Things podcast.
It's a ham radio.
The Cadillac of ham radios.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of Ham Radio as Stranger Things podcast. We've got a great episode for you today as usual, but first, we have a little housekeeping to take care of, and I'm going to turn it over to Jasmin to let you know where you can find us on social media and where you can listen to the podcast.
Thanks, Ashley. You can find us on Instagram at Ham Radio Media, all one word, on Twitter at HamThrough, on YouTube at Ham Radio Media, or using our handle HamRadio1983. We also have a Discord you can join, which is linked in the description of this episode. If you have a fan theory or question you want to share, you can email us at hamradiomedia@gmail.com. Ashley also has a fanfic on AO3 entitled Stranger Things College, which is also linked in the description. The podcast is available on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and much more. If you like the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review. We have a lot of totally tubular stuff coming up, so be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with the podcast and all of our new content.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ham Radio and Stranger Things podcast. Today we have a full slate for you guys today because we are having yet another bonus episode and for Stranger Things 5 filming updates. And this episode will be covering weeks 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. That's right, folks. 5 weeks, and hopefully we can get this episode within like 2 hours. So keep your fingers crossed, pray, whatever you have to do, that Jasmine and I will not, have a 10-hour recording session. But before we get into that, just have some few housekeeping things to take care of. One of which being, we have to remind you all that Google Podcasts is discontinuing. That's right. After April 2nd, 2024, you will no longer be able to listen to podcasts in Google Podcasts. If you use Google Podcasts, you have until July the 29th of this year to migrate your podcast show subscriptions to YouTube Music or download a file with your show subscriptions so that you can upload to any podcast app that supports importing. Now, if you do not want to do all that, just keep it simple. Just switch over to Spotify, or if you have an Apple product, just switch over to Apple or any other major podcasting platforms. So there's that, and then we also want to extend our thanks and gratitude to the Star Court Study Hall podcast for guesting on the show. Parts 1 and 2 of our discussion with Star Court on the concept of the Nina Project are now available wherever you listen to your podcasts. It was so much fun, just chatting with Amanda and Marina about not only the Nina Project, but some other Stranger Things tidbits and other things. They are what you listen to. If you listen to their show, is really what you get with them because they're just so down to earth, very easy to talk to. Very fun to engage in conversation with. And if you're not listening to the Star Court Study Hall podcast, please go do that. They're on all major podcasting platforms, like I just said. They're really good friends of our show and we of them. And it's always fun to interact with them on their Instagram and their Discord server. So if if you're on Instagram or Discord, go check them out there too. So again, thank you to Amanda and Marina if you're listening to this episode for coming on to our show. So without further ado, Jasmin is going to start us off with some behind the scenes goodies from Ross Duffer on Wednesday, February the 28th.
Thanks, Ashley. So our first new drop was a photo of Steve's car in front of some ruins and a telecom tower. And then we got a photo of a remote Radiohead manual. And then our next drop was on March 1st. We got photos of Caleb and Sadie filming at the Hawkins Hospital. We also got a comment from Ross Duffer saying that the pic is of Sadie and not of Max because Max is still in a coma. We then got photos of them filming together at her hospital bed, with Lucas holding her hand, and a cassette tape of Hounds of Love by Kate Bush next to the tape player. And then we got a video of Caleb braiding Sadie's hair, and him saying it's her first day on set, but he's been here since the beginning, which seems to imply that Lucas is in episode 1 and 2, but Sadie doesn't appear to episode 2. Or it could be possible that a mannequin was used in episode 1. We then got a photo of Castle Byers in the Upside Down. We got a photo of the Duffer Brothers walking in the woods in the Upside Down. And then we got a photo of them filming at a farm with cranes and what looks like a giant green screen. And then we got some photos of what looks to be a previous storyboard, with some frames being X'd out as they were filmed. You can see Hopper in a few of them, and it looks like 11 might be in one of them.
Yep, and then we got a crew member celebrating after winning a game of pinball on the Stranger Things licensed pinball machine, as seen by our very own Jasmin at the roller rink that she got to go to. And we later found out that this is actually a hangout area on set. Like Jasmin and I, it took us a long time to figure out what this was and where they were, because we thought they were filming at the arcade again, but it looks like maybe this was just at their hangout spot on set for the cast and crew. And then we got a tally photo showing that Ross Duffer has won something 20 times, and staff writer Paul Dichter is tagged in this photo. And to round out March 1st, we got a video of another marble being dropped into the new marble bowl in front of a Stranger Things 5 neon sign, which I hope they sell, or they put on, for public merch, because that is like probably one of the coolest signs that I've seen in quite some time. So Jasmin, what out of all this, this behind the scenes content dump kind of stood out to you the most?
I'd say there were a few things. The first thing that stuck out to me was the photo of Steve's car. Since we previously got the photo of like Steve and Nancy's cars plus what looked like a military vehicle, it appears that like him and Nancy are still kind of driving basically the group around. And a question I have going into season 5 is, what's happening with the Byers stuff? Because to my mind, eventually, their stuff has to make its way from California. Are Owen's people handling that? You know what I mean? Like, because their stuff just can't stay chilling forever in California, but they also can't go back there. So we know these are earlier episodes, so I'm wondering if, Steve and Nancy are basically driving the group around, and at a certain point, the Byers stuff is going to come in from California, and then we'll add, of course, Jonathan and Joyce's cars to the mix. Because otherwise, that's a lot of people to cram into 2 cars. Nancy's got a bit more room in there, but as far as we know, Steve's car is either 4 or 5 seaters. So
Yeah.
I don't know how they're gonna get the whole gang in there unless they're strapping somebody to the roof.
Even in season 3, with Nancy's piling all the kids into the station wagon, it was still like they were still packed in there pretty tight.
Yeah, they were packed in there pretty tight. It's a time of laxer laws about seatbelts for sure.
Yeah, maybe they can use that RV that they stole.
Yeah, the stolen RV. Yeah, maybe they can use that, or I don't know, commandeer another vehicle. I also had the idea that they might want to be using Eddie's old car, just because Wayne would probably be looking to like sell that in the aftermath of his death. So I also had the thought of maybe the Byers wind up borrowing that car, or they wind up buying it, you know what I mean? Something like that. I could see that happening. And I love the video that we got of Caleb and Sadie. You can see how like really close they are in real life. And for people who may not know this, they are both Broadway babies, so they actually grew up doing Broadway together in like New York City before they were cast on the show. So they go way back. And I always love those moments where you can see that. Like, one of my favorite scenes with those characters is when they're at the Wheeler house in season 4 and they're all on the couch. You can really see how close Gaten, Caleb, and Sadie are, and it feels like the camaraderie and the way they're trying to signal to Erica like feels real, and I really love that. And I also thought the implication from these videos is okay, so Lucas is there from episode 1, but Sadie might show up in episode 2, or they could have maybe used a mannequin or a body double or something in episode 1. Ashley, do you have thoughts on that? Because I'm kind of curious as to what the implications of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. Well, first of all, I was very surprised to see Sadie. Like, I didn't think we were going to get a picture of her so soon, even though like Ross was like, yeah, this is it's not Max and Sadie, but it's like, well, I mean, she's obviously there for a reason, and they've already said like Max will be back, but she's in a coma, so we understand that. But I mean, yeah, I think of like they filmed at that hospital for a few weeks. I mean, they filmed there pretty hard, and I mean, again, like there could be somebody else there like going on things like that, but yeah, I mean I really am worried we're not going to get to see that much of Max, at least earlier on in the season. And that really stinks because Max, certainly in season 4, like, hands down, if you weren't a Max fan already, like, surely she won you over in season 4. But Max is one of my favorite characters on this show, and it's going to be really hard, to watch season 5 without seeing Max being there, because since season 2, she's been there.
For sure. And I kind of suspect, based on what we're seeing now from the behind the scenes pictures, that I think maybe the first couple episodes are going to be, part of the plot is going to be Elle searching for Max, like trying to find her. And so I wonder if maybe the reason we see Sadie in what was presumably episode 2 is, maybe we're seeing the other side of it, like Elle keeps searching for her, can't find her, can't connect with her. And then we find out where Max, like her soul, her spirit, her essence, for lack of a better word, is, and you see her trying to reach Elle,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm kind of expecting something like her body is there, but her spirit, what have you, is somewhere else, and we're gonna kind of see that, and at some point they're going to connect somehow. That to me is what makes the most sense, because otherwise, if you just have Max lying in a hospital bed the entire season, that is obviously a waste of Sadie Sink's talent. And
Yeah.
considering how much she absolutely nailed season 4, and just how amazing the response was to that, I don't think, and obviously, I mean, they're paying her to be there, right? And I honestly don't think Sadie Sink, as much as I think, they all love this project, I don't think she would sign on to a whole season of her lying in a hospital bed. Like, I don't think she would. Do you know what I mean? I don't think,
Yeah.
or if that was going to be it, I mean, I think she would just be like, all right, well, call me when you need me, and I'm going to go do these other projects. And they're already having to do a lot of, you can tell that they're having to kind of MacGyver around other people's schedules, just because now there's a lot of overlapping projects that were supposed to have been, like, they were supposed to have been done by now. So these projects were supposed to be taking place either before or after this season. So that's kind of what I'm picturing. I think that's probably to my mind, that's the best way to use Sadie Sink's talent, but also keep with the storyline that they've created. So that's what I'm sort of imagining.
Yeah, and two, I can see it. They just have Max lying in a hospital bed the entire season. Like, people are just gonna flip their lids and be like, "You should have just killed her off if this was the plan." But I mean, I trust the Duffer Brothers enough to believe, like, when they say like, "There's a reason that we kept her alive but in a coma." And I trust them to do something with that. And I feel like, I mean, I do think you're right that 11, for at least maybe the first 2, maybe 3 episodes, is her just trying to find Max. But I feel like if Max ever wakes up, maybe that's a lifeline, if you will, to finding Vecna, because like Max said it herself in season 4, in chapter 8, that like she can still feel him. It's like she's marked. And so, like Will, I think that Max is connected, now to Vecna, because he did, technically succeed in killing her, if only but for like a minute. So like Dr. Brenner said, like, I think that some part of Max is with Vecna. And so I feel like she's sort of the bridge that connects that gap.
For sure. And I don't think it's an accident that, Max gets targeted in season 4 when Will isn't there. I think it's pretty clear now, knowing what we know about Vecna, that had Will had Will still been in Hawkins, I think he definitely probably would have been a target again. And so, I mean, I saw someone say this on Twitter, I think after the season came out, they were like, man, Max taking one for the team there, because like, she, like, by being the target, like, she inadvertently like saved a lot of lives, because like Vecna only went after those like 4 people instead of, like, you know what I mean, like how many people died in season 3, and like Will has been the target for like 2 whole seasons. So yeah, I agree. I think, she is connected and she was marked in that way. And I'm really excited to them explore what that means. Like, they've hinted at this psychic connection that develops when you're taken by Vecna, and taken into the Upside Down. or like marked in that way. And because I mean, and I guess there's the other question of, when Max wakes up, is she going to have the same like spidey sense that Will has? Because we know that Will was taken down there, he died, they had to resuscitate him. Max also had to be revived. Is that what creates it? Is being killed by Vecna or something in the Upside Down and then being revived? Is that what's creating the psychic connection? Like, is that what's triggering it? I kind of wonder about that because that's the only other case we've seen, and everybody else he's succeeded in killing. They're the only two victims we know to have actually like survived like an actual like a full on attack.
Yeah, and real quick before we move on, like what really concerns me with Max and that said connection to Vecna is that if she were to wake up, because she is connected to Vecna, and let's say they were to, kill him or the Upside Down, whichever one, but mostly him, like they said in season 2 and season 3, like the brain dies, the body dies, and that's probably one of my biggest fears. Is like them succeeding and taking down Vecna, but at a big price of, Max going with him. And if that is the case, maybe Vecna tries to use that against him. I don't know. Or I could just be reading too much into it. But that's probably one of my bigger fears, is that it might have all just been for nothing, because like for them to know like, well, we can't kill this guy if we still want Max to live because she's still in a coma, or Max's mother deciding, what, my daughter has been in this coma for X amount of weeks or whatever, and she's not showing any signs of waking up. I might decide to take her off life support, and it's like, what do Eleven and company do then? Like, to explain to Susan, like, Susan, no, you can't. We can't really tell you why, but just trust us. Like, you cannot take this girl off life support,
I mean, they could pull a Little Miss Sunshine and like snatch the body.
They could. I mean, I would not put it past these people, considering they just stole an RV.
Yeah.
And they've done other stuff too to get
Yeah.
by. I mean, in desperate times. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I
they
think
absolutely could.
it's either they bring Susan into the fold or they snatch that body because we cannot take Max off life support. So
Can you
something's gonna go
imagine,
down.
could you imagine like how crazy and funny that montage would be if like seeing maybe Nancy and Robin, maybe Mike or Dustin or whatever, Steve running out of the hospital with Max's body, like, and them going, go, 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 and trying to escape unscathed, I think that would be definitely right in their wheelhouse. Like I really could see it. Now I don't know how goofy they would want to be in the fifth and final season with the stakes that high, but they always incorporate good comedy in this show. So I could definitely see something like that happening.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that. And they have been known to use kind of moments of comedy to kind of, cut the tension in previous seasons. So I could definitely see them doing that. I'm just trying to think Susan explaining this to the cops. Like, I said I was gonna take off life support and now she's gone. Like the cops are like, they did what? What do you think they did? Like, and we know they're useless, right? Them scratching their heads, trying to figure out where they are with this body. And
I
like,
know. I can only imagine like what what Callahan would say of, like, okay, so when did you first notice the body wasn't here? Or he could say something like, so someone came and took the mean one's body. Something like that.
yeah,
Like,
something like that. Something like that. And to your earlier point, I do think that severing the psychic connection is going to be a big part of the final plot because how there was that blooper for season 4 where Mike and Will are talking, and I think Noah says something like, when I was the spy, and then they both start laughing, and
yeah.
people have pointed that and been like, okay, clearly there's something here that like he said it and he wasn't supposed to say it yet, but they did include it in the bleeper, like the blooper reel. So clearly they're okay with us knowing that. That's a very different type of reel. But so I do think that is definitely going to be part of it. I don't think you're reading too much into it because until this moment, I had not thought about the fact that Max may have a psychic connection and they may need to deal with that. I was thinking about it more, with Will, like, is since we know there's a psychic connection, we know that came up in season 2 where they couldn't take out the hive mind without hurting or killing Will, and they had to find a way to like incapacitate him so he couldn't spy on them, so he could take out the Demodogs and close the gate. This is a more high stakes version of that. Are we going to see something like, they gotta, unplug Max or stop Will's heart and to give them enough time to take out Vecna so that connection is severed long enough for them to like take him out? But then you got to resuscitate those people really quickly. Otherwise, like it says, like, the brain dies, the body dies also, or the body dies, the brain dies. Like, if they're without, if their hearts are stopped or they're without oxygen for too long, you become brain dead. So, and there's nothing left to save. So, I think one of my big questions going to season 5 is, how do we sever that psychic connection so these people can move on with their lives and be able to recover? While also taking out Vecna, like how do you kill the source without killing the host? Because they're hosts in that sense, right? And everyone else has been killed except for them. So yeah, how do you take out the bad guy without basically killing the people he's infected? So I feel like that is going to be a big question of season 5 is like, how do you do that? How do they pull that off?
Yeah, like I think about that too, and I don't know. I think a lot about with Billy in season 3 and how 11 at the end there was able to break through what we now know is Vecna's hold on him, and you can literally see like the physical change. Like he doesn't have the black veins anymore. Like he's kind of back to normal, and I mean I think that's probably what makes it so much that much sadder when you on rewatch to know like she broke through and kind of helped him release this hold off of him, and then he kind of basically sacrificed himself for the greater good. But yeah, I think that's gonna be a major question in season 5, in addition to the other major questions that they have yet to answers. Yeah, like all the way back from season 1 that they still have not answered.
There are so many notes, and we look forward to getting all of them answered. So, so the next drop of photos we got was on Monday, March 4th. So we got photos of the Wheeler house, which appeared to be taken on a soundstage. We saw the living room and kitchen. We saw a bag of Doritos next to a radio. And there was speculation that this could be where Caleb and Sadie were sitting in the video, because we see a front door behind them on set that looks like it might be the Wheeler's front door. And then on Tuesday, March 12th, we got a photo of a clapperboard showing that the Duffer Brothers are directing episode 4 of season 5. This appears to be the same one from earlier with the pic of Robin and Steve. And you can see the name Sarah on it. And we don't know this for sure, but Sarah might be Sarah Heinzgall, who is the head of the hair department. And then we got a video of Millie Bobby Brown in the hangout room on set. You can see the kitchen and the area next to it with the arcade machines. That's where the Stranger Things pinball machine is. And then behind her, you can see a replica of the Palace Arcade sign, the alphabet wall from the Byers house, and a corner of the Wheeler's basement. And these are, Gene Gomes on Twitter pointed out that the photo we got of Ross from earlier that looked like it was taken in the Wheeler's basement is actually from this part of the hangout room. It looks like a set that they've like, perhaps, like a set piece they inserted into the hangout room, because you can see like the black kind of edges of it, whereas they've recreated the alphabet wall kind of in a free space, so it looks like they may have just like taken that set piece and just moved it into the hangout room. And so I feel like with this latest drop of photos, we got a lot more context to some earlier stuff that looked like it might have been when they were filming, but now looks like it might have been, the photo might have been taken when they were like hanging out, or like they were on set, but they weren't like actively filming a scene in that moment. They were, in the hangout room or some other location on set. And then also in this video, we see that Millie is wearing an intact turquoise hair tie bracelet, and there's dried blood coming from her nose. And that's significant because we previously got a photo where the hair tie bracelet was broken, although she does have 2 of them, so it's possible that one got broken and she's wearing the other one, or scenes are taking place at different times. Also in the hangout room, there are some 80s style chairs around the table and a rack of clothes behind her, and there's what appears to be a technicolored light projection on the ground behind her. Again, the video pans very quickly as she moves the camera around, so some stuff is a little hard hard to catch. She said she's wearing her costume, so she's in costume as 11, and she's wearing a gray sweater with a blue bandana around her neck, and says that they're currently doing night shoots for the show. Cara Bueno also posted about filming at night, so it appears that there's a lot of nighttime scenes this season, so could be taking place, nighttime or early morning. And we had that previous photo of the bike at night at the Hawkins track, so it looks like they're going back to kind of the spooky small town nighttime vibe that we got in some earlier seasons, which I know both Ashley and I are really looking forward to.
Yes, I must say that was probably the Cara Bueno video was probably one of my favorites from this patch of dumps, even though this was Cara Bueno, this was from her personal Instagram, not from Ross Duffer. But obviously she got permission to post it. But yeah, I mean it's so cool to I've been hearing that they have been filming a lot at night this season, which I mean does make sense because number one, throughout all four seasons of the show, there's a lot of stuff that happens at night in the show. But I think that because we are getting probably the most of the upside down that we've ever gotten in the show, they probably want to make this as practical, the effects as practical as they possibly can. And so I feel like, doing night shoots probably helps a little bit more with that than maybe, they can certainly do a little bit more than, just on a sound stage. With that. But yeah, I mean it was really cool. But also like what she said, like they wrapped at 6 a.m. in the video as she posted. And so like there was a pretty much an all-nighter, which I mean they're getting very well compensated for this. But just the thought of hearing that just instantly exhausted me. But another big, the biggest probably shock of this whole thing was, the video that Millie posted, like that was on her personal Instagram and her Florence by Mills Instagram. And like you talk about star power, Jasmin, like I mean the fact that she was able to post this but also in costume, I mean that's and promote her brand. Can't imagine many people would get to do that, Jasmin.
No, I imagine not. She definitely has that star power, most definitely. And then so on Wednesday, March 13th, we got more stuff. So the Hollywood Reporter published an interview with Finn Wolfhard where he talked about Stranger Things 5, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, and SNL 1975. He confirmed in this interview that they will be filming for another 9 months. And when he was asked how Mike's doing in season 5, he said he's good, but that he's at a sort of crossroads. They're getting back to a lot of the dynamics from season 1, which the Duffer Brothers have, they said that right off the bat when season 4, volume 2 dropped. And this has been backed up by various things the cast have said. So that does appear, that and the stuff that's been said about Max are two things they've kind of talked about from, after we got volume 2. And since this keeps being referenced, it's clearly something they've been told they can say. It looks like that is, sometimes, showrunners and stuff will say things and they're, intentionally kind of misleading to kind of hide stuff or what have you. But these do appear to be two things that are true about season 5, these are two things we keep seeing them come back to. He also said that there are some Leader Mike moments and that it's a very grand season, and that it's both bigger and bigger but also very isolated as well, because the scale of it is bigger because they introduced a much bigger scale in season 4, but it's isolated in the sense that it's they're in Hawkins and they're kind of getting back to their roots. So big scale but isolated location, kind of back to what made the show so successful in season 1, which I know we are both very excited for. He was also asked if it was a bummer to be isolated from the rest of the cast in season 4. And he said it definitely was, but that it was also nice to, have storylines of people he hadn't acted with for a really long time, like Charlie Hatton, who plays Jonathan, that they never really had full scenes together, and they are very close friends in real life. So it was great being able to have scenes with them, and it was great spending time with Noah Schnapp. And so they didn't really shoot for the first few months of production because they were so focused on the Hawkins stuff, and so he was really jealous. And when he finally watched the show, that was his favorite part, and he loved watching the other guys in Hawkins. So not being able to be around everyone was a bummer for season 4. We said season 5 was the opposite. We're all together all the time, and then a bunch of them, meaning him and the other cast, live around the corner across the street from each other in real life, as all of them have homes in Atlanta, which they were obviously at while filming. So the cast is getting to see a lot of each other, and they're in a lot of the same scenes, which has been really great for them. And everyone's like super excited to, be together, be around each other and be filming. And I really loved how I feel like Finn echoed a lot of stuff that we as fans felt, that out of all the plots, Hawkins was the strongest. It was the one that felt the most like the Stranger Things we'd come to love for 3 seasons. And that, like, while they appreciate that they tried something new and, increased the scale, that was the plot that everyone felt, most jealous of and wanted to be there. And that the actors felt that too, that they were like, well, it was great to get, scenes of the three of us together, but I really miss being a part of the gang, being part of the party, and filming in Hawkins, and doing what we normally do, and how and I like this kind of confirmed the fact that they tried something in season 4. Parts of it worked, parts of it didn't. You respect the fact that they tried, but for season 5, they're coming back to their roots. They've been like, all right, we tried that, coming back to the roots, keeping the same scale, but really focusing in on, what makes this show great. And it seems like the actors are also really enjoying that. And I think that makes a difference too, if everyone's really happy to be together and they're like, going out of their way to hang out and, they're all really enjoying being together and filming. That creates a different vibe and I think a greater authenticity to the performance. I mean, like, great actors are great actors, but you can definitely tell, I think, when actors, really get along and really do enjoy spending time with each other. And you can definitely tell, I think this show is at its strongest when you see that coming through in their performances and when they give the actors a chance to like work with that, so I'm super excited to see all of that come together on screen. And then, as previously mentioned, for the reason he was doing this interview is that both Finn and Millie have movies out this month. So, as previously stated, Finn has Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which premiered in theaters on March 22nd, and Millie has Damsel, which premiered on Netflix on March 8th. I went to see Frozen Empire, would recommend, and Ashley saw Damsel and has her own thoughts on that.
Yeah, so Damsel is watchable. I will say that is an entertaining film. If you're just like, it's Friday evening, I don't have anything else to do. I think, I haven't had a, long day at the office. I think I'm just gonna kick back, sit on, on the couch, eat some popcorn, drink some Pepsi Cola, and just have mindless entertainment. Then Damsel is the perfect film for you. Now, if you were looking for deep artistic film, then it will not be for you. But yeah, it is watchable. Again, you will be entertained. I thought Millie Bobby Brown did a great job. But is it recommended? I wouldn't say like you have to see this movie. It's not recommended like that. It's if you're bored, watch this film. But yeah, that's Damsel.
Yeah, in contrast, I would recommend Frozen Empire. If you liked Ghostbusters 1 and you liked Afterlife, I think you will like this movie. I think Finn does a good job. Yeah, it was a well done sequel. It was a well done sequel. It's enjoyable. It's a good addition to the franchise. And yeah, it was a good movie. It's definitely something I would watch again. It's definitely going to go on my, Halloween watch list. I'm thinking of maybe this year doing, like a Ghostbusters marathon where we're going to watch like 1, 2, skip the one we all don't talk about, and then watch Afterlife and Frozen Empire. So yeah, would recommend. And I'm also interested to see SNL 1975. I hadn't heard about it until Finn's interview. But for those of you who aren't familiar, it's a film basically about the creation and like the first episode ever of like SNL in 1975. And Finn has a minor role. He plays this like page at NBC who's trying to get people to come see the show. But it's a period piece set in 1975, and it looks quite good. So I am also very excited for that one.
Yeah, and I had heard about the SNL film. I wasn't aware that Finn was going to be in it, even though he does. It appears to be a very, very minor role. I didn't know that until I saw some set pics of him on Twitter. So yeah, it's really good for him, branch out. And I mean, he's kind of already, branched out and has done a lot of things outside of Stranger Things, but I think it's a good, good stepping stone role for him, and I think he'll do well. I think he'll do well in it. And then on Friday, March the 15th, we got photos from weeks 9 and 10, and our first look at Jim Hopper. He's got noticeably longer hair and a beard, longer beard, and appears to be filming at the junkyard. We got a photo of Matt and Ross laughing someone. Could it be Linda Hamilton or could it be Robin? Photo of someone with an Alf poster, floral wallpaper, and shelf of books that include Peter Pan and Nancy Drew, The Secret of the Old Clock. Could this be Holly's bedroom or Erica's? Alf, which for those of you who don't know, was a sitcom, and Alf is an acronym. It stands for Alien Life Form. It's a really funny show. You should definitely go watch it if you can. But Alf premiered on September the 22nd, 1986. What does that mean for the timeline? I think, it's pretty obviously just for the looks of Hopper that we are going to get a time jump, but it's just a matter of how long of a time jump. And then we got a photo of the Wheelers' bathroom with a pair of pink fluffy slip-on heels. Karen's maybe. I did see another theory that these are a pair of slippers that Elle wears to the prom. That would be
Sorry, that's
something.
ridiculous. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That is not her style. No one lets a child wear that. I don't care if it was the 80s. Absolutely not. No, I'm sorry. That's just the stupidest theory I've ever heard in my life.
I feel like the poster was whoever posted it was probably being sarcastic because they had like laughing emojis. But I mean that is like pretty comical. I mean, I could see her wearing like some hand-me-down heels from like Nancy. But yeah, I mean Karen's style is definitely not 11's, then we got a photo of the blood references for the Massacre at Hawkins Lab in the Rainbow Room from season 4. Are we getting the massacre from Henry's perspective? I hope so. And next, a photo of a housing development billboard in the Upside Down. A photo of some equipment with the word Brozone written on it in tape. Is this what, to shield the Duffer Brothers when they are directing? Probably so. Then another marble drop glass bowl video. And then finally, I think this is probably the biggest one of this photo of this behind the scenes drop was a photo of what appears to be the party. Mike, Will, Dustin, and Lucas doing a dog pile with their hands. I think that picture and the one with the rainbow room were probably my two favorites. Of the whole behind the scenes drop from the 15th.
Yeah, I feel like we got a lot of stuff in this and stuff I wasn't expecting we were going to get, like at the beginning, people were saying, oh, we want this character, we want this character. And I was like, I think we both said this. It was like, I don't think we're going to get that. And then we did. So I'm surprised with how much they've released. I'm also surprised that they keep teasing that we're going to see the table read and they just never show it. Like, I feel like, I don't know what they're doing with that because I'm kind of like, if you're not going to show it, that's fine. Just tell us you're not doing it. But I don't know if maybe they're waiting to drop that until like maybe like Tadam or Stranger Things Day or Geeked Week or something. Not that I really want it. I do find that a little odd, the way they've kind of marketed that. But yeah, I did not think we were going to get a look at Hopper. So I'm surprised. I'm happy and like surprised that we did. And for the photo of Matt and Ross, I kind of leaned towards Linda Hamilton because I tried, like making my hand do the same kind of gesture. And I feel like you can see like the veins on that person's hand more so than you would for somebody younger. Although if they're in like prosthetics or makeup, I mean, that could be contributing, we don't know. And I'm leaning personally towards it being Holly's bedroom just because of kind of the decor and the aesthetic. I'm surprised that they're sort of confirming a time jump here because we knew we would probably get one at some point, but I'm interested to know where in the story the time jump is though, because they mostly film chronologically, but we also do know that there are times they film stuff out of order because they have to, or because when people are available. Like I said, we do know that there are other projects and like promo and other people and stuff that people are filming, which got delayed because of the strikes. First because of COVID, then the strikes. So are we seeing scenes now that could be towards the end of the season? Are they earlier at the midway point? I would be surprised if we've jumped that far by episode 3. You know what I mean? Like if we've jumped from April to September, I would be surprised just because I feel like that cuts out a lot of action, and like that's the most, the action is the most interesting part, like I feel like it takes a lot of the meat of it. So I'm very interested to see when it premieres what the actual, like what the final timeline is. And yeah, I definitely think those wheels, wow. Those heels are Karen's. I don't think they could belong to any other character. And I'm also surprised that they basically gave us confirmation that it looks like we will be getting the Rainbow Room and the massacre and, a lot of stuff from Henry's perspective. Because there's no other reason to go back there. You know what I mean? We've already seen Els. We already gotten Brenner's take on it. And this drop does seem to confirm that we are getting a lot of flashbacks and we are seeing different perspectives. So that was something that, Ashley and I have said we were really hoping for. And so the confirmation that it looks like we're going to be getting that is super cool. And, from what we later saw, with the photo with the dog pile with the hand, some of that does seem to match what we later see Will wearing in some of the later photos we got. So, I mean, that one made me tear up. I'm sure it did for you too. Just, seeing the party back together and that kind of that camaraderie and, so much of what made, season 1 so great. But this time we actually have, Will is actually like alive and conscious enough to like be a part of it, because we've never really had a season where like the full original party plus Elle were like all together. And now, of course, Max isn't, but it's presumably she will wake up at some point and we will see them all together. Like we've had moments, but not kind of like, come together, let's fight the bad guy moments in a while. And I'm personally really excited to see that. It made me a little bit teary eyed to see the gang all back together.
Yeah, me too. And just the fact that I mean, it's been a while since we've seen the party all together like this. It's been back to early season 2. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to some of those moments like that we haven't seen in a few seasons now. But I'm like really excited just to see the the stuff from Henry's POV, because there's two sides to every story. And I just think that you can't have a proper send off if you don't, give us the full 411 about the villain side of things, because, we've only really seen the side of the story from the right side up. Even with Will, like, we've never seen what what it was like for Will and the upside down. We're kind of going to get that this season. And there's just so much that we've only gotten one side of the story, I feel like, and I'm glad to see that we're finally getting the other. Which this also makes me kind of wonder, like when Vecna pulled Nancy in to like his memories and stuff. Did he show her the massacre, or did he just like skip over that? Because I mean, I know that the way it was written in the script for the monologue and stuff was really mostly more for the audience, so we could see all the stuff. But yeah, I mean, I wonder if he showed all that to Nancy. I mean, obviously she didn't say anything about it, but at that point you don't really need to reiterate that. So
I feel like he probably skipped it just because the end he says tell 11, and this 11 was at the massacre. Like if his whole point was to scare the crap out of Nancy and make her tell 11, if she was at the massacre, I don't think he'd show her something that Elle had already like been witness to, So I feel like I take your point, but I feel like he probably skipped it just because if he's being even a little bit honest there, his whole point seems to be I'm gonna freak her out and I'm gonna get her to tell 11 everything I just showed her.
Yeah, and that part, I mean, I like the way it's delivered, by Jamie Kimmel Bower there and all that. I really like it, but it it really, in the context of it, doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because it's like, well, I mean, how do you know if Nancy even knows where 11 is or not? I mean, do you even know if 11's still in Hawkins or not? Like, why, other than maybe the writers wanted to show us there, like, he knows about 11 and stuff. I don't know. I just, every time, I watch it, I like it, but at the same time, it's kind of head scratching.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely need to clarify what Vecna knows, and I think going back to season 2, they definitely gotta explain to us how is Vecna getting into everyone's heads? Because when we see him in season 4, and he goes into like the where everything is red, and he sees he's picking his next victim, and and he's seeing all the bad things that are happening to people, all the bad thoughts, and the destructive thoughts and stuff. Like, clearly he is able to access people's memories and stuff, right? But that seems to be an ability he's gained over time, because we don't get any indication of that in the earlier seasons. I think had he had, Owens and Brenner talk about how he acquires abilities of the people he kills and how he's gotten stronger over time. So I think if he had the ability to see into people's heads that way, he wouldn't have needed Will to spy on him. He would not have needed to have taken Will, and he would not have needed to use the mind flare. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't need any of that stuff come season 4. He can just do it all himself. So I think he gained those abilities over time. And I feel like there has to be a connection between what he's able to do with the mindscape and get into people's heads and what we saw in season 2 with the vines. I don't know exactly what that connection is. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like we have enough information, but you're right. Like, they definitely do need to explain, like, does he know that Nancy and Elle know each other because he can somehow see into her memories or her mind? And maybe he can't, at that point, he can't reach 11 because she's outside of Hawkins and he can only connect to people within Hawkins. Like, that seems to be true. Like, there's something about Hawkins. But then, when she comes to him through the mindscape to get to Max, or is that like why he targets Max? You know what I mean? Like, is that part of it, that he's trying to get to 11? So he targets, like, it worked with Will. So is he building up and targeting someone he knows was going to pull her into the mind fight, basically, to get access to her? Like, is it all about access? Is it more than that? I think, to your point, like, they definitely need to clarify that, because you're right. Like, that is a bit head scratching. I feel like we need more context there.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I definitely think that is the case. Like, he's trying to get to 11. It's pretty clear he's been doing that for quite some time now. And I do think there is one person in 11's life that, he could definitely go after and really would pull her in. And his name's not Will. Tell you that. If you've been watching Stranger Things long enough, you'll probably know who I'm talking about, which, people don't like to talk about and don't like to admit that. But come on, like, if I were Vecna and I'm like looking through my little mind void thing, whatever red area, I'm picking out Mike Wheeler. I mean, I'm just
Do you think
I'm
that's why he
telling
picked
you.
Nancy? Do you know what I mean? Do you think that's why he went after Nancy? Because
Yeah.
he couldn't get to Mike? Do you think he went after Nancy? Because he specifically showed her, like, Nancy's really upset when she's telling everybody that he showed her, like, Mike and Holly and her mom being killed. So do you think that's why he picked Nancy out of all of them? Like, he could have done Dustin. He could have gone Lucas. He could have gone, you know what I mean? Like, Max, he could have gone any of that, like, her, like, 11's own age, her friends, but he went after Nancy. He could have gone Robin. Like, he could have gone anybody. Do you think that's why he picked her?
Yeah, I do think that's part of the reason, because like you said, I mean, he showed Nancy, Mike, and Holly and Karen presumably dead. I think that's one half of it. I think the other half too is, I think he knows who Nancy is, and I think he knows, like, this is a Snoopy nose. This girl's a Snoopy nose, and she's been coming after me. And I have to, this is a cat and mouse game. Like, I have to show her who's boss here, that type of thing. Because of what he tells her in episode 7 is, I see you've been looking for me, Nancy. And, like, he clearly knows, like, everything she's been up to, and even that, all the way that the fact that she visited his father in Penhurst. So I think that is definitely a two-sided coin there with Nancy. I mean, one hand you get Mike, and then the other hand, it's a fun chess game with Nancy.
Yeah, and he also he brings up Barb's death, so he has to know that she feels guilty about that, and that her and Steve were up there in his room when that was happening. Like, he has to that implies he knows, so he has to have gained access to those memories and those feelings of her somehow, because otherwise him playing with her like that makes, like, no sense. So he has to have access to that somehow. So I feel like they gotta explain how he's getting access to everybody, and, like, what is it about Hawkins? Like, we know the town's cursed, but, like, what is it,
Yeah.
So carrying on March 22nd, we got our first look at Will Byers, which, honestly, I did not think we were going to get. That's another one where I didn't think we were going to get Nancy. I didn't think we were going to get Hopper. I didn't think I will. We've gotten, like, there's certain characters I we got Steve, we got Robin. I expected those type of characters, but I didn't think we were going to get them. So that was super exciting for me. First photo, he appears to be in a basement workshop of some sort. This appears that it might be the same type of like school basement type area that we've seen before. Whatever this type of basement workshop area, wherever this may be, it looks like this might be the same place where we've seen, the manuals for stuff, and they're clearly working on something. So they've clearly acquired some kind of basement sort of hideout workshop type area that appears to be where this is filmed. We see that he's still rocking the bowl cut, but at least his hair has grown out some and seems curlier. He's now got sideburns going on. So it looks like they're having him grow out his hair, which if we are eventually going to get a time jump makes sense. The Stranger Things writers also were responding to some fan comments on Twitter about how they're basically getting him a new haircut this season and how they were magic in those scissors. So I like that they're at least acknowledging the fact that the bowl cut is an absolute trash look on him. It was cute for the first couple of seasons, but it looks absolutely terrible in season 3 and 4. They did him so dirty. They did him so dirty with that haircut, you actually forget Noah Schnapp's an attractive looking person. Same with Jonathan. Sometimes I see pictures of them go by just out in the wild, you know what I mean, on Instagram or whatever, and I'm like, you kind of forget they're attractive people because they just look so awful. And it's intentional. They have said it's intentional. And Jonathan, I get that was part of his storyline in season 4. They're showing something there, but seasons 3 and 4 with Will, I've seen interviews where they're they're trying to show that he's trying to figure out who he is and his identity, and I'm like, okay, but he could still do that with a decent haircut, guys. It's not if you look at Joyce, she's rocking a nice do the whole time. Jonathan's hair looks perfectly fine for 3 seasons. Elle rocking a nice do for most part. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the rest of the family. It looks like, they got some discount haircut. Everybody else seems to be fine. So I'm very excited to see him get a new haircut. And as Ashley, I prescribe to the glow up theory, and I've been really hoping to see a glow up for Will in season 5. I think he deserves it. And I just cannot watch one more season of that goddamn haircut. So I am very excited. We appear to be moving in that direction, because that's the direction we want to be going into, and also just from a story perspective, we can't keep Will frozen in time. We can't keep doing this thing where he has this dorky haircut and he never moves past his childhood and he never grows and evolves and he never comes out. He needs to, for his character to move forward to a satisfying conclusion, end point for his character, he needs to do that. That is a necessary step we need to take here. And quite frankly, they should have taken it already. So very excited about that. And then in the second photo, we got Noah Schnapp next to what appears to be a younger actor dressed as him in season 1 at Castle Byers. And to be honest, at first I was kind of taking a double take there. I was like, is that a mannequin? Is that what is that? And then I realized it was another kid. And Ashley actually caught this before I did, that the actor has dots on their face. And so it looks like we're going back to Castle Byers. We're going back to Will's abduction. We're going back to those flashbacks. And it appears they're doing the same thing they did with Millie last season, where they had her direct the younger actor and they did the de-aging process to make it look like her in season 1. Of course, she's supposed to be younger than that, but you know what I mean? It make it look like she did when she was younger. And so it appears that they have cast a younger actor to play a younger Will, and they're doing the same thing. And since, for all of season 4's sins, that is something that looked really cool and they pulled it off. So I'm very excited to see that. I know Ashley and I, if you're a long time listener, you'll know that Ashley and I have talked about our hope that we would get to see what happened in season 1, Elle's escape, Will's abduction from their perspectives, and we would get more information about them. We would get more flashbacks going back to the 70s, the lab, and this series of drops seems to confirm that we are going back to that. And Ashley found a really interesting theory about why we're going back to that, the cold open, Will's capture on Twitter. So do you want to share that with the people?
Yes, and just bear with me, folks. It's kind of a longer thread, but we're going to have it posted in the show description so that you can go and read it to access it for yourself. I'm not gonna read it all verbatim, but I mean I feel like I'm probably gonna have to. But anyway, so the first thread, how it starts off is so before I do that, actually I want to tell you who the user is on Twitter. It's Strange Girls J on Twitter. Again, we'll have this link so you can go directly to it. But anyway, Strange Girls J writes, The news that Stranger Things filmed Castle Byers in the Upside Down this week tracks with a snippet we got from the Stranger Writers account that the opening scene from Stranger Things 5 will be of a young Will singing. The implication is we might return to the end of Season 1, Episode 7, where the Demogorgon catches Will. One plausible question here is why are we returning to this moment? Clearly, there is something important here the show wants to revisit. It is notable that it's this and not the first capture of Will that is being highlighted. My personal theory, this was when Vecna decided Will was useful for more than just Demogorgon reproduction, and that was because of one significant moment that happened moments before. And then Strange Girls J posted a picture of from season 1, episode 7, the bathtub where 11 is holding Will's hand. She's in her void, telling him, your mom says, she's coming for you. It's that moment there. They go on to say Will was able to hide in the Upside Down for an entire week, but a brief contact with Elle in the Void, where they actually touched, was enough to almost immediately draw the Demogorgon's attention and get him captured. This is one heck of a coincidence. Yes, it is. The VR game states that Vecna used Will as a pawn against Elle. We don't know if the game is canon, but regardless, this makes a lot of sense when you consider the fact that while he ignores and undermines everyone else, Vecna has always given Elle attention. He fears her. When Elle looked for Will, showed concern for him, and promised she was sending his mother to get him, it was made clear that Vecna now had access to someone who would likely be in touch with Elle. I think it is very possible that Will was not rescued but returned. This also makes the fact that Will was used to spy on the others and become a form of Vecna's presence outside the Upside Down more relevant and clear. It also makes it clear that it's not so easy for Vecna to get to Elle for whatever reason. Strange Girls J ends the theory by saying this: I'm sure there's more to this, but one thing is certain. The moment Will was recaptured in the Upside Down is relevant and potentially a turning point both for the character and for the group as a whole. He became Vecna's eyes and involuntarily exposed Elle and his friends to him. And that is the end of the Twitter post. Jasmin, thoughts?
Yeah, I super agree with that. I mean, I'd never really put those pieces together before. I'd put the pieces together of, okay, we're probably going, we got that snippet on Stranger Things Day of, a child singing a familiar song. Okay. I think we were all pretty sure that was, and, with some of the earlier pictures, I'm like, well, they're going back to the Upside Down. This must be flashbacks because, like it was too soon for them to be having a battle. You know what I mean? Like Vecna at this point just got, fried. You know what I mean? It's too early in the season. Plus pacing wise, it's too early. So I'm like, there's got to be a flashback. And then we got the photo at Castle Byers, and I'm like, okay, this has to be going back. I was thinking it was going back to the initial days of his capture and his abduction, which we may very well see. But the point that this could be going back to the moment where like him and Elle made contact, and that called the Demogorgon to him, and that made him visible in a way that he hadn't been before. And something I had connected was, I'm like, man, this kid survived like a week down there, longer than anybody else. I mean, Hopper got taken out pretty quickly. Steve gets attacked pretty quickly. Everybody else that goes down there gets attacked pretty quickly. Will was able to survive and go back and forth between Castle Byers and the Byers house, and stand there long enough for his mom to write letters, you know what I mean, and talk to him through Christmas lights before having to retreat to Castle Byers. But even then, like, the Demogorgon somehow knew he was in the house, but not, and he was able to escape and get back to Castle Byers. So I do wonder also, obviously the connection with Elle does something, but also when he was connecting with his mom, does Will somehow connecting to people on the right side up, is that triggering something? Because you know what I mean, as soon as he's alone again, it can't find him, and then that contact with Elle happens, and bam, he survives for a week, and suddenly it gets him. It doesn't just get him, like he dies, like they have to resuscitate him. So I hadn't quite made that connection until we saw this post and people started talking about it. But I'm very excited to see us go back there and to get, I didn't know if we were ever going to get more of that backstory. They were just leaving that in season one. Although I did kind of have an inkling we might go back there just because you have that line from Nancy where like Eddie and Robin are trying to understand about the lights when they're in the Upside Down season 4. And she says something like, they're asking questions and she goes, that's my understanding. I think that's how it works. Will was able to communicate with Joyce. So I did get kind of an inkling that we might be going back there just because they could have just provided some kind of an explanation right then, right there, or they kind of just glossed over some of this stuff and been like, all right, we're leaving this in season 1 because, there's always season 1 stuff or pilot stuff that gets left behind because you're figuring out what the show is going to be. It was not originally intended to be a series. It was intended to be an anthology. So I had kind of an inkling, but until this started being talked about, I hadn't put the connection, I hadn't put those particular dots together. And I'm personally really excited to see us go back there because I feel like that's going to be really interesting. And I love that, seeing the actors kind of like direct themselves in a way. That's clearly something they enjoy doing. And I think it's a great way to kind of meld this new technology. Because obviously there's great ability for misuse, but I think a really great use of it is stuff like this where you're able to show a younger version but use both the actor you have, another actor, and then the technology together. And I love that we're going to kind of bring it all full circle. I mean, I feel like that's kind of the theme of this season. Bring it all full circle and kind of get that backstory that we're missing to see how all those things connect together. And a more sentimental note, something I really love about, what we see with the whole Byers Hoppers family is that, as time goes on, you really see that they were just kind of, meant to be a family, right? You see how Elle connects with Will and that helps save his life. You see how, Hopper thinks he's chasing Will the whole time, realizes he's been chasing Elle, he's been chasing the wrong kid. And, see them, all come together and be a family in the end, I think is like a really beautiful kind of full circle moment for those characters. And I love that it kind of plays with that, making your own destiny, that family isn't just who you're related to, it's who you choose. And, and I think it's really beautiful. And I'm really excited to kind of see all those pieces come together.
Yeah, me too. And, you make a great point about, Joyce, Hopper, and 11 and Will and stuff. And, this family element between all them, and it just makes me think about we see Henry Krill, and he knows who his birth parents are. He knows he had a sister. He had what we seemingly a really good childhood, a good upbringing with with the family. And I mean, obviously I feel like there's more to that, and hopefully we're gonna get more context behind that in season 5. But 11 up until season 2, she didn't know who her birth parents were. I mean, you assume she doesn't know her biological dad is. But I mean, she didn't have the pleasure of growing up in a a traditional family setting. And I mean, heck, I mean, the girl never probably saw a real blade of grass for 12 years of her life, the first 12 years of her life. And yeah, look how good she's turned out as a human being. She's blossomed. Of course she had to escape the lab in order to do that, but she was dealt a crappy hand in her life. And there were things that, she was dealt that were out of her control, with everything in the lab and with Brenner and even with Hopper, trying to keep her safe, in the cabin and stuff. But she made the best out of things. And we have the flip side of that, Henry, who, just decided to, kill people and try to take over the world and unleash, his anger and his hatred on the world instead of, just making the best out of things. And I think that's, I mean, and obviously this is coming from, not knowing the end of what the end of the series is going to be like. But I feel like regardless, that's probably going to be the more poignant, parts of this show is, I mean, it's not just, central to 11. But I think of Hopper and Joyce's, well, really all of our characters, our main characters, is life is going to run over you. It's gonna happen, but it's what you choose, how you choose to respond to that determines your fate and, like you said, your destiny. And I feel like that's probably more of the bigger overall theme of the show. Which I just think they do such an amazing job at.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that makes the show so beautiful. It's, it's so many things. And at the heart of it, I think the emotional core of it is this idea about, found family and, choosing your own destiny, that like you can't escape the things that have happened to you, but you can kind of choose how you respond to them. And I think that's why so many people have like connected with the show, is that something that I think many of us in our own lives can, relate to. And I appreciate that, even though it is set in the 80s, in a time when, we don't talk about mental health, or we don't talk about trauma the way we do now, the show does go out of its way to kind of acknowledge the impacts and not shy away. One of the big themes of season 4 was trauma. And I like that the show doesn't shy away, because I think a lot of shows, if they just stuck to being like an homage to the 80s and never gone beyond that, which was kind of the initial idea, I don't think it would have evolved into that, but it has. And I appreciate them leaning into that and saying, yeah, these characters have evolved to feel like real people, and it's not just an homage, and we do need to address what these characters have been through, but also that there is a way forward. I think in the end it's a very hopeful message about you are not what happens to you, and you can find a way to move forward with your life, as hard as that is, and there are still good things. And I think for so many of us that connect with that idea of found family, that idea of working through your trauma for a better life, and seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, I think that is like a really powerful message. I think that's part of the reason the show like really connects with people, is it I think a lot of other shows, they kind of stop at the blood and the gore and the trauma or the sci-fi. There's no like bigger message, or like it kind of stops short of that. And I appreciate that they lean into the heart of it.
For sure, for sure. I think it's like Starcourt said when we had them on, this show is very literary in nature, which I agree. I mean, this show is more like art than really anything else. And that's one of my favorite things about this show. It's not just, like I feel like, like you said, when it's just an homage to the 80s, then it becomes more of a spoof. And this is not a spoof. This is art. And that's one of the basic ways I explain it to people who've never seen Stranger Things. I'm like, if you want a good well thought out show that makes you think, Stranger Things is the show for you. Even if you might not like sci-fi or horror or anything like that, this is a good show that does well with balance, and it will make you think. I mean, it'll make you think a lot, and that's kind of how I'm able to draw people in.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there definitely are spoofy parts of it for sure. But it's like, they described it as, each episode being like a mini movie, and how like they treat the production of it like a movie, but the overall arcs as a series. And I really like that about the show. There's an old quote about, I think this was after season 1, where, at the end there, where you see that like, Nancy gives Jonathan the camera, and, her and Steve went back together, and the Duffer Brothers were asked about this, and they said, yeah, well, her and Jonathan was the original plan, but, after we gave Steve the redemption arc, in the movie version of this, her and Jonathan would wind up together, right? Because narratively, in a movie that's like an hour, 2 hours, that's where you go. But this isn't a movie, it's a show. And so, you got to think about the timeline there. This is like the week from hell. You know what I mean? Like it basically takes
Yeah.
most of the action, takes place over like this 1 week. And meanwhile, the characters have a life outside of that, and how, like Steve is someone who Nancy's had a crush on for forever. Like their relationship has been going on for a while by the time we see the events. So her just dropping all of that for a guy she spent one traumatic week with doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and that's also what I love about the show, is it really is like watching a movie every episode. And it is true, they film it like filming a movie. That's why it takes so long, folks, for them to film this show, because they film it like they're filming a movie, which most, they say that a typical production of a movie takes like 3 months. And so when you're doing this for like 8 or 9 episodes, I mean, yeah, it's going to take some time. And real quick, just to compare, like another show that I like to watch is called Yellow Jackets, and like the writer strike put them behind as well. But their season 2 of their show like just came out last March, so a little bit more recent, and they do like a release on a weekly basis instead of all at once, like on Netflix, because they're on Showtime. But anyway, like the creator of the series had like gave this news bulletin about writing updates, and that they hope to be done with the writing by May and begin filming by May, and take from May to like October. And I watch like a Yellow Jackets podcast on YouTube. It's like a live show, and they're talking about it. The hosts were talking about it, and they're just like, yeah, it really stinks that we have to wait like 5 months, May to October for filming and stuff, and like we'd love to have it now, but the strikes and stuff. And I'm like, that's like I would love to wait for like 5 months for Stranger Things to be filmed. Like that would be like gold, Jasmin, like that, because that's like like nothing compared to the wait time for a new season of Stranger Things to be filmed. But I mean, I get it, like when you're a fan of a show, you want it now, and I totally understand where they're coming from that. But they'll probably be watching the new season of that show before we will of Stranger Things 5.
For sure. And I think something that really also plays into the production time is just like they care so much about accuracy, right? Making sure that like the props and the hair and the makeup and the clothes and all that stuff is as accurate as they can possibly get it. And they have really amazing artists and craftspeople that work so hard on that. And there's like a real like a level of attention to detail here that the only other show I can think of with that same level of detail is Mad Men. Like I read once that for that show, they like even the ice cubes were like period specific. Like they found a hotel that had like an old ice maker from like the 60s, and they had the ice cubes made specifically like to the because I guess ice cubes look different back then, I guess, depending on how the machines worked. And they were basically compared to other shows where you're like, oh yeah, well that type of controller hadn't come out yet. Da, da, da. So I mean, kudos for all that care and effort that they do, and also like, all the creatives that go into it. Like it takes time to even just create the posters. Like all that stuff's done by hand. It like all this vintage stuff is sourced, or they have to recreate stuff. So yeah, they're filming everything like a mini movie, and there's a ton of time that goes into the craft of making it, which I think makes the quality so much better. It doesn't feel fake, you know what I mean? I think in a way a lot of other things do. And something I always like to point out to people is I think this kind of gets lost because the show is so action packed, and I think the weights between the last two seasons have been so significant. Is in the characters' lives, we're seeing a very small snapshot. Like is season one is basically like it's basically a long weekend from hell. Season two takes place over like basically the days before and after Halloween. So again, another long weekend from hell. Season three takes place like right before, and then during like the Independence Day long weekend. And then season four is spring break. So we're getting a few days out of these characters' lives. They have an entire life outside of that. And I feel like to us, it feels like a very long time because, we're watching a whole show and there's long times between seasons nowadays. But yeah, we're getting like a very tiny snapshot of these people's basically their lives. And so I think, when we talk about how long things take and, where they're at, that, all of that stuff factors in. And personally, I would rather they take the time to, make it as accurate and as realistic as possible and, put that kind of care and love and work into it, and have it take a little bit longer than not do that and have something that's not as high quality, because the quality of the show is really quite high and not every show has that. So to wrap up our last kind of photo drop, when we got these photos of Will Byers, both the Duffer Brothers and Noah Schnapp wished Will Byers a happy birthday in their posts. What does this mean? When is Will's birthday? It's the return of Birthday Gate. I mean, to be honest, I go back and forth on Birthday Gate because originally I thought it was intentional. I was like, God damn it, they forgot his birthday. But then I was kind of leaning towards, I saw some interviews and they were like, oh, it's just a misunderstanding. We're going to have Winona go back in and, we're going to re-record it. So she says May instead of March. And I was like, okay, it was an honest mistake. I mean, season 2 was like several years ago for them, the, pandemic and everything. I mean, they had an extra like 3 years in there. But now the fact that they're in they're doing this in the post, and they're like, I think Noah's post, literally quoted Joyce. So I don't know, because I kind of feel like either they're trolling us or like, and also the writers count was saying, we got Will a new haircut for his birthday. Like, are they trolling us? Or is his birthday really March and the characters forgot it? Like, when is his birthday? Are they just trolling us? What is going on? Because if March 22nd is canonically his birthday, I feel like Will needs to like blow up at everybody over that, because you know what I mean. He needs to stop holding it all in. If it's not, and we're gonna say it's May and they're just trolling us, I would also like to see that addressed, because I know they said they were gonna have Winona record it, but as far as I know, no one's like gone back to watch season 2 and been like, oh my god, they changed it to May. Like, no one has so far reported that, and I feel like people have been doing rewatches since season 4 came out, so I feel like somebody would have reported back. You know what I mean? Ashley, what are your thoughts on Birthday-gate?
I mean, does Will even really have a birthday? I mean, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, the fact that in season 2 they bring up his birthday, and then in season 4 it's obvious that day is his birthday, and I've seen the interview with the Duffer Brothers where this was brought to their attention when they were doing season 4 press. And you can tell that they really legitimately forgot about Will's birthday. And so I feel like just based on like things they posted in the past, like they probably know how to have a good laugh at themselves, and it's probably like one of those things. Well, we're just we're laughing at ourselves because when it was brought to our attention, we realized we forgot his birthday, and so we're just gonna have fun with it, and also give people a first look of Will, on a day we remembered that it was his birthday, and because we are literally starting season 5 with Will in the cold open, give them that little present. That's kind of how I took it, and so that would conclude all the bonus episode content. But before we get you guys out of here, I did want to share with you a few Oak Ridge updates. For those of you who don't know, that is an upcoming audio drama series that I created. It is a sci-fi mystery thriller sort of horror audio drama, kind of like Stranger Things. It's set in the early 90s, and it does take some influence on Stranger Things. I would say that, but I just had a few updates I wanted to share with you guys. So recording officially wrapped a couple weeks ago, earlier in March, and episode assembly, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're taking everything that's been recorded and you're just assembling it into the episode format as it's written in the script. That is complete, and season 1 is now officially in post-production. So yay, we're getting the editing going. I'm hearing some good things on that front, and we do have a target date, June of 2024. We do have a specific date in mind, but I'm not going to reveal that just yet because it hasn't been made official by the powers that be, and I don't want to get in trouble. So I'm just gonna just say, expect it around, June of this year. But yeah, so far that at the time of this recording and by the time you hear this, that's all I have for the updates on that front. But just follow Oak Ridge on social media. We'll have the links to our socials in the description, so you can keep up with all the updates on the show and see like when you can expect to listen to the show. And with that, we're gonna get you out of here, and yeah, thanks for joining us for this another bonus Stranger Things 5 filming episode.
And that's our show. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and tell your friends. Our theme music is provided by Neon Knights, and our sound editing is provided by Ashton Cooper. Thank you for listening to this episode of Ham Radio, a Stranger Things podcast. Please join us next time, same dial, same time.
Over and out.